one of the biggest impacts you can make at the population level is just giving people good nutrients. So even if they're overweight, the impact of getting everyone back to normal weight is not as big on your health system as just getting them the right nutrients and letting them be overweight, because that's actually what's killing people. And this is one of the largest and longest running studies. If you could figure out pharmaceutical solutions to this, where you just pop some pills, get the nutrients that you need, people are pushing in this direction. Like supplements are obviously, principally, you could use quantum computing to do a better job of this. You could probably use classification and recognition systems as well to increase animal efficacy studies. You'd be surprised at how primitive the pharmaceutical studies are, where you just give drugs to animals and then you see papers published and they're like, yeah, this animal looks healthier. I don't know. So, I mean, maybe you could make that.
Dive into the intriguing world of deep technology and its intersection with business on Technocracy. We're your hosts, Ajay and Loon. Let's explore the breakthroughs and people shaping the future of technology. Technocracy Podcast.
I'm going to talk about Moonshots. I think I may have mentioned it last episode. The reason why we're doing it again is because this is one of our more popular episodes, which, to be honest, is a little bit surprising because it takes the least amount of effort to do. It's just like shooting the shit. Maybe that just resonates better with the audience.
Even if they're overweight, the impact of getting everyone back to normal weight
is developed by Axe,
which is on your health system as just getting them the right nutrients.
Company within Alphabet.
Overweight,
and so
because that's actually what's killing people. And this is one of the largest and longest running studies. If you could figure out pharmaceutical solutions to this, where you just pop some pills, get
10x some sort of
people are pushing in this direction.
10x the solution.
Principally, you could use quantum computing to do a better job.
There are three things that they sort of look at for the ingredients. There's a huge problem
to increase animal efficacy.
There's a breakthrough technology,
primitive the pharmaceutical
and then there's a radical solution.
Give drugs to animals.
What this game does is it provides us a huge problem, provides us breakthrough technology, and we've got to come up with radical solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the intro. Do we want to do a specific category this time? Because we did surprise me, but maybe...
I feel like we got a lot of like social change issues last time, which is definitely not my forte. Maybe that's the point, but let's go climate change. Can you select multiple?
You can, but I'm thinking that if we do one, we can then centralize the episode around it, right? So it'd be like... Here's our solutions to climate change.
Okay, well then, I'm bored of climate change. That's all I hear about. Food security, health, maybe not health because I'm in health. Food security, internet and information. Either of those two.
I really want to like whip out a D20 and just like.
But Ajay, there's only 10 options.
What did you say? Food security or social inequality?
Yeah. Wait, do you know you can Google dice numbers?
Yeah.
And it just gives you like as if you rolled the dice.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay,
I still play a lot of D&D.
So okay, I rolled a 1. So climate change shit.
Are we respecting the dice?
No.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Food security. Let's just go with that. Let's just pretend that 1 is food security. And let's do. Yeah, let's say 20, but I think we only need 15. And usually in this game, when you play it, you have to select a problem and a technology, and you focus just on that. But I think we're just going to have the problem and the 3 technologies provided to us. I will narrate the first one if you're not watching on YouTube. But if you're not watching on YouTube, you should switch to YouTube because it'd be easier to follow. So the first problem is destructive fishing. Nearly 90% of our wild fishing stocks are depleted, in large part due to unsustainable fishing methods, overfishing, illegal fishing. Interesting. And we have 3 different technologies. We have programmable matter which has the ability to change its physical properties based on a user's input or programming. Desalination, the process of removing salt from seawater. And gamification, the application of typical elements of gameplay, such as point scoring, competition with others, rules of play, etc., to other areas of activity.
So before we jump into the solutions, I actually read a study that was published, I think 3 years ago, maybe 4, that particular fishing stocks that were heavily degraded and in fear of going extinct, I think tuna was one of the big ones, have actually replenished from like 30% of what. So you got like 90% of fish have like gone below a certain threshold of their expected population. So there are fish stocks that were down to 30% of their natural population and now up at like 60 and 70 and recovering. So before we dive into this, there is actually every chance that we actually have solved this problem, and we just need to continue expanding and doubling down on our existing programs. Don't know what the solutions are. I think they're mostly socio-political solutions, not technical ones. But just a shout out to the fish.
To the fish.
Yeah, technically fish are classified as bees in California. That's also my other fun fact. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
We'll discuss it at the end. Why are fish bees?
Okay, well, the immediate thought I had, which is not even an idea, it's just like if you gamify like killing fish, you just gain experience points for every fish you kill. But like that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to do the opposite. So maybe it's you get experience points for like not killing a particular fish or saving a fish.
No, you can't get experience points for not doing something, right? What if you make the fish inedible? Like you program a worm out of them. So I'm going to talk about mosquitoes in a future episode, but this is a thing that we actually do, which is where you genetically modify or even just biologically modify with like diseases or bacteria. You don't even need to genetically modify them to change their properties, and you can change their like fertility, their ability to carry certain like viral vectors, etc. But you could maybe make fish taste like absolute shit.
I am curious how much of destructive fishing happens because of yes, we eat fish, but there might be other reasons we.
So tuna stocks are depleted heavily because we eat them. So yeah, you're right. It depends on the fish, but certainly bluefin tuna.
You could also program them to be smarter so that they're like avoiding nets and avoiding hooks,
or just like extra slippery and extra sharp, so that if you catch them in a net, they just. Desalination. How's that going to help us here?
I have no idea.
Are there fish stocks that are only viable in freshwater? Could you just like put a nuclear reactor next to a bunch of nuclear reactors next to a bunch of salt water and like create artificial freshwater lakes and do fish breeding? Because one of the other things that, I mean, okay, again, I'm stuck on the food problem, but like fish farms, as unethical as they are for the fish in the fish farms, at a more global scale, they're very ethical, because you basically take a massive, piece of water, a body of water, a fake lake, huge tanks, and you just breed fish for the sole extent purpose of eating them instead of catching them in the wild. And at the end of the day, markets respond to price. So that's always going to be a cheaper method, or maybe you can make it a cheaper method.
Yeah, there are freshwater fish, but yeah, I have no idea how desalination. Maybe my brain is not hardwired to come up with ideas.
Wait, read the problem again for our audience.
So, unsustainable fishing methods, overfishing, and illegal fishing are three sort of.
Okay, so the problem is specifically focused on explicit fishing. I don't think anyone's fishing not for food.
Except like whales, right? I thought you kill whales for like.
No, they fish them for food.
Oh.
Yeah, and they used to do it for oils, but I don't know if they do that anymore. I doubt that.
I thought you also needed whales for like perfume and stuff like that as well.
Really? Wow. Well, okay, programmable matter solves that, right? I mean, if there are alternative use cases like perfumes for whales, which I've never heard of, but the weirdest shit happens, you can just synthetically program that into like other forms of physical matter, right? You take your whatever is your ethyls that are used in perfume and just program them to have the properties that you're looking for, and then you just reduce the need, right? Like if I can program my perfume to smell whatever I want, then I don't need to fish any particular animal to get that. Do you want to
Gamification, competition.
So the application of typical elements of gameplay, such as point scoring, competition with others, rules of play, etc., to other areas of activity. Who can eat the most fish is the obvious.
No, here's the idea. The fish themselves gain experience and points for like surviving, and like, and then you as a human can like bet and like sort of support different fish in the ecosystem.
I love this. Have you seen this? There's this live video feed of these dams in, I don't know where it is, but the problem is that these dams block the natural passage of fish. And so they had to build these valves that let the fish through. And one of the challenges with that is how do you kind of only want the valve to be open when there's a fish actually present. And so what they did is they turned it into a game and they just have this live feed watching. And then people just get super obsessed with it and they watch it. And then when the fish comes up, they like click the button and it like sucks the fish in and sends it down a little tube and you get to watch it right out the other side. And I don't know, apparently people find it very satisfying. So I could absolutely see that working, right? Like some kind of tagging system for different fish across different fish stocks. And then I don't know how like you would influence that though. I mean, maybe it just creates public awareness and public care that ultimately drives change politically. But if you want to go full DeSci with it, you could get people like funding various fish stocks, like actual like active groups. Like I mean, Greenpeace comes to mind, like to protect certain stocks. Could you do?
Yeah.
Is there something like there's these groups in Africa that literally roam around with guns protecting animals that are endangered? The most famous one being the rhinos that finally went extinct, I think 10 years ago. But
who pays them to do it? Or
they do it out of their own, like, I mean, there's also philanthropic groups that fund them and individuals, etc. But you could gamify that, right? And you could have people like riding through the seas, like protecting these fish stocks.
Yeah, you set up bounties, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you
protect this fish,
yeah.
He's got the most XP. I like that actually. Yeah. Do his kids, when he breeds, do they get partial XP?
Yeah, I think so. And then you could sponsor a fish and then follow its journey, and then you get
it's like Hunger Games. We drop ship fish food and weapons to them.
Yeah, it's kind of like a decentralized, the betting markets. Like it's kind of like that. You can bet for the fish. And then desalination, I don't know. Don't know if we have anything for that one. Except your freshwater idea, which is just build more freshwater.
Well, it depends how liberal you want to be with this. So, like, I mean, it's not overfishing, but if there's like river pollutants, lake pollutants that are fucking with fish and making their preventing their populations from replenishing naturally. So if you think there's a natural equilibrium, you fish this much and then the fish replenish. But if there's issues with the water that's preventing fish from replenishing properly, like, I mean, oversalination is not really a thing, but at least that I'm aware. But if you broaden desalination to the more general idea of having high-powered, high-energy, like mass water purification systems, whether or not that could be deployed to sort of make the environment for the fish nicer.
Okay, I think we've exhausted this. However, if you comment an idea that I like, I'll give you $100 gift card. Well, it has to be like a good one, right? So any of these moonshots that we talk about, if you comment on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you can comment, and it's a good idea, I'll pick the best one, assuming there's more than one, and I'll give you $100 gift card. And I'll also be good. Like if they're all ass, then
I'll match that. I'll give $100 gift card to the stupidest idea. the funniest idea.
Okay. All right, nice. We'll call it AJ's prize and Long's prize, and that'll be completely different. All right, let's go back to setup. Still food security, I'm guessing?
Yeah, why not?
All right, I'll let you read this one.
All right, the problem is food waste. Approximately 1/3 of the world's food is wasted every year, enough food to feed 2 billion people. If we completely eliminate food waste, we'd eliminate 8% of the world's total greenhouse gas emissions. The first technical solution we have is artificial organs and implants, synthetic tissues to replace the functions of faulty or missing organs or other parts of the human body. All right. Brain-computer interface, a direct communication pathway between an enhanced or wired brain and an external device. And heat pumps, devices that extract heat from one place and transfer it to another. That sounds like a fridge. It's a fancy word for fridge.
Yeah, actually. Extract heat from one place and transfer it to another. Yeah, what?
I mean, so the artificial organs and implants immediately jumps out to me, right? You artificially engineer people to not need as much food. Done. Right.
I'm trying to. Let's dissect the problem a bit, right? So,
but you can
waste
subvert
enough
the
food to feed.
you can subvert the problem with artificial organs. Like just reduce the demand, and then the supply constraint is not as much of an issue.
You can reduce demand, but also I think that there's the oversupply is due to the fact that like not everyone wants to eat the same thing, and like everyone wants selection, and like
well, it's not just that, but it's also distribution, right? You think about the places that lack food; they are not near the places that have too much food. So it's not a simple question of saying, oh, well, we can just easily transport all the wasted food that the US doesn't consume to the places in, Africa that are struggling to feed themselves, because the bread that usually comes to them from so the calories essentially that usually come to them from like the Ukraine aren't making it there anymore. It's like that's a fundamentally supply chain issue. How do you fix that?
So, one idea is if we have the brain-computer interface, then we can like optimize the supply chain by knowing exactly what everyone wants, right? So you get rid of the wastage to the selection. So yeah, like you only produced what like the forecast of what people would want in 1 year, right? So you start growing crops and building the stuff that like exactly what they want based on collecting all the data from the population of say 500 million in the US, and just like feed that into an AI that would then be like, cool, I know exactly the eating habits of all these people. I'm only going to produce this.
So part of the challenge there, though, is that you have these unpredictable adverse weather events that destroy sections of crop, right? So you might create enough industry, like you might say proportionally we have the right amount, but then a weather event comes through like it did, I think, earlier this year and just decimates all of the chocolate production, right, on the west coast of Africa. And you're like, okay, well, now what do we do, right? Now your proportions are all out. And so you still get this food wastage because the demand supply within each category is wrong. But one way, going to heat pumps, right? You could try and offset adverse weather events through just like stabilizing temperatures, which is, going to be increasingly a thing as temperatures heat up to, what is it predicted to be 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius worldwide average. Like I worked on this project where people were trying to build, and then there's so many of these projects now, like you do all your farming inside, right? And the major energy, the major cost to doing this is the energy required to keep the temperature stable. And so, if you can improve heat pump technology, that's already getting applied to try and reduce the variability in crop. And if you can do that right, then at least for that category of food getting destroyed, you can match that with your brain computer interface and make what everyone wants and kind of be slightly more sure that it's not going to get destroyed. But I don't know. Like my understanding of the food waste problem was more that it was a major supply chain issue in terms of even if you had exactly the food that people wanted, that you would not be able to get it from A to B. And you're talking about feeding 2 billion people. And honestly, people who are presently below the threshold that the UN considers reasonable for calorie intake. There's so much going on outside.
There's a big supply chain issue outside.
I don't think they're going to care whether or not they're eating a particular kind of food, right? These people are just on the brink of starvation.
Well, if you move to a more developed population, is there really like a supply chain issue? Like, I don't know if the supply chain issue is the leading cause in, say, the United States, or even a smaller country. Let's pick like Australia, right? Like, is it really a supply chain issue, or is it just like a overconsumption and overproduction issue?
So there's actually one of the things is that people tend to buy food where there's more of it. So if you put, if 10 people need to buy food, and you put exactly enough food for 10 people into, one of those things in the supermarket, people will actually not buy the last couple items. There's just this weird psychological effect. And so they will just put 2x the amount of food there and waste half of it because people end up buying more and ends up being more economical. The other thing is that specifically in Australia, the food waste issue is actually partially a liability issue, because there's this, I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how it works, but basically they take all this food, and if they just give it away to the hungry. They're taking on a liability if the food is off at the end of the day, etc. So I mean, you could make arguments about heat pumps. They're essentially refrigerators, right? So the better refrigeration technology, the longer we can keep food around for. If you can extend the definition of organs, I mean, this technical solution is very specific about humans. Like if you scroll over the card and we read it again.
Which one? Food waste?
The artificial organs. It says synthetic tissues used to replace the functional, faulty, or missing organs or other parts of the human body. That's very specific about the human body. But if you just take synthetic tissues, we can create plants and other base crops that can survive in different environments. And we already do this. And you can breed, microgreens, for example. They're going to have longer shelf lives simply because of the way that they're composed. And again, for very specific refrigeration techniques that keep them fresh on the shelves for longer. Maybe that can reduce liability. It can ultimately reduce food waste.
No, dude, you're thinking too small. I think what we need to do is turn our skin cells so that we have chlorophyll in them and we just photosynthesize.
Well, hey, that was my opening suggestion, right? Reduce the need for food. Either you make your organs more efficient at the translation into energy or, okay, yeah, sure.
No, just 0 calorie consumption and just photosynthesize.
I am all for that. All right, give me something better for brain-computer interface, though. Can you?
Okay. So one of the things you brought up when you were talking about like the food wastage stuff and the liability side of things, I think in some European cities there's apps where you can find leftovers basically and like go to a restaurant after hours and then collect the food from them, either for like you pay like $5 and get a huge box of food, or like they just give it away for free. I had a few friends that used it and like the food looked really good. You just like go at the end of the day, and that was like a sort of way to solve this like food waste issue. So there's like a multi-tiered thing because like as a consumer, we tend to buy more than we need because just in case, and you want some optionality in home. So like, most of the time, like when we buy fruit and wet veg, like 30%, okay, let's say maybe conservatively 10% to about 60% would go in the garbage, right? Because you're not going to eat it in time or expires or something like that.
There are certain foods that I have forbidden my partner from buying because they sit in the fridge and they melt. They literally like zucchinis and other kinds of vegetables. If you leave them in the fridge long enough, they just turn to water. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
and it always happens.
So we just install a brain-computer interface into your partner so that she always knows what the expiry dates of food are, and it will automatically create recipes in her brain like when it's about to expire. It's like, hey, your food's going to expire tomorrow. Here's a recipe that will utilize everything in your kitchen that most effectively and by a staggered expiry date of all the food that you have left in your house, to ensure that you always end with like a zero stock pantry at the end of the week.
I would also want that in the supermarket. Like when I'm shopping, that my kitchen can tell me what I already have. Because I mean, I always end up buying
duplicates
I already had because I wasn't sure if I had it or not.
Or your partner bought it and then you buy it as well, and you're like,
that's got to be this like the worst risk reward trade off for putting a brain computer interface into your head. And also, it's like the most first world version of this problem, right?
Yeah, but I think you're right. Like, I think the food wasted issue like happens in several tiers. It's like at a personal level, at a supermarket level, at a like state, like a supply chain issue at a global level. There's so many levels that it happens at. And so I think the brain computer interface would help on the personal and the shop level, which I think would be really interesting. And even a global level. Yeah, end of the game for us.
All right, let's do another one. Let's do one. Third time's the charm.
It's bugging out. Doesn't want us to pick. Okay, so last food security issue. Hopefully we don't get the same one. Unsustainable aquaculture. Approximately 3 billion people in the world rely on seafood as a primary source of protein. What? Okay. But most of our wild fishing stocks are already depleted. Okay. So this is not necessarily the same problem as the first one, because this is more that we don't have enough seafood to sustain the population.
For our audio listeners, read the whole thing.
Oh. To meet the world's large and growing demand for food, we'll need to increase farm seafood production sustainably. So, yeah, I think the SDG that's focused on zero hunger. So trying to create more fish for the population that want it. We have 3 technologies. The first one is virtual reality.
Oh, dear. No, I've got a good one for this.
Just the immediate thought of like, oh yeah, just pretend that they're eating food.
Yeah, exactly. No, not food. Fish, right? You put the person in a virtual reality, they're actually eating something else, right? Like fake soy fish or whatever, but like it looks like fish to them, you know?
So there are 3 technologies. Virtual reality, so an experience taking place within a simulated and immersive environment that can be similar to or completely different from the real world. Pretty sure everyone knows what virtual reality is. Food extrusion, a process that combines mixing, cooking, kneading, sharing, shaping, and forming to create foods such as plant-based meat.
Oh, hell yeah. We got a good tech stack here.
And then data mining, the process of finding anomalies. I was like, my brain just like couldn't pattern recognize that word. Patterns and correlations within large data sets to predict outcomes.
Okay, you got the trifecta here, right? What you do is you use data mining to figure out where the most likely undersupply is going to be. Because as fish stocks move, as natural events occur, there's going to be a fluctuation in different regions for like who's actually going to have enough fish if you're trying to just keep everything done sustainably. What the weather events are going to be. So there's a forward prediction element here. You then deploy food extrusion in those underserved regions to generally upscale how much food you're going to have access to, but you're essentially creating synthetic fish, synthetic seafood. And then in the places where you can't do that, or where you can only do it very badly, you plug people into a virtual reality where they're eating food in the real world, but you've augmented their reality so that it appears and tastes, depending on how advanced you can get these simulated realities, like they're eating seafood. Right? So you have this degradation effect. I think you've solved the problem. So it's like real food, sufficiently real fake food, and then when you really can't do that, just simulate it. And then you use the data mining techniques to figure out how you're going to distribute those resources based on what's going on.
So I don't think this game has a winner, but I think you've won.
Do I get a $100 gift card?
Yeah, that's the checkmate. Let's see if I can add to this. I think it makes sense. Like, one of the things I was exploring for a future episode, which I don't know if we'll do an episode on, I'm still looking into it, but there's a lot of seafood scams that happen, right? And most of the scamming is that they sell like bluefin tuna, but they use a lower grade fish and they will sell that as bluefin tuna because it's more expensive, or they use fake lobster, fake crab. The crab sticks are really popular, which is just actually made out of fish. They're made out of crab, but they boil some crab in oil and they use the crab essence to like infuse it with the fish to make the fish sticks. But most people are aware that fish sticks are fake. They're not real fish. So I think one of the things is making more variants of that crab stick thing, right? Which is
so you're talking food extrusion as the core technology here.
Yeah, food extrusion. I guess also supporting what you're saying as well. And in virtual reality, just to trick people into thinking that they're eating something a little bit more.
Or maybe
could take it to the next level and just say that like they're eating nothing, and they could just pretend to eat food.
Yeah, but then they die. I don't think that solves the zero food shortage challenge. Okay. The alternative here, right, is if you're going to increase aquaculture, which is these, we talked about it briefly before, but these essentially fish farms, right, where you set up these huge like farming environments and you just dump fish into them, right? It completely avoids the overfishing issue. You can deploy these anywhere in the world, so, regionally, whatever. An alternative way to use this technology is you use data mining to figure out which fish are the least happy and are the most like upset with their current circumstances, being in these incredibly unethical fish farms, and you feed the fish a virtual reality that they're swimming out in the nice blue open sea. That way we can offset the guilt of having these massive fish farms and still get the food.
I was thinking of the exact same thing. I was thinking of that cow where they put like VR goggles on the cow to make it feel like it was in a greener pasture. Because
really?
I think it was in Russia, but like when the climate gets really, really cold, milk production sort of stops because the cows are stressed out because the environment is so bad. So what they did is they put VR goggles to make it look really like green and luscious so that they get less stressed out, so the milk production increased.
Wow. I mean, this is one of the reasons why fish farming is also challenging, because like high stress in animals changes the flavor of the meat. And so generally fish farms don't taste as good. Also, I mean, you could increase food quality with food extrusion, right? So like the feed that you're providing the fish, I don't know if there's some way of optimizing that process and, leveraging food extrusion tech to make fish food high in nutrients, but low cost and able to be made out of whatever the most regional available ingredients are.
Yeah, I mean, I think food extrusion is like the most obvious.
I'm just trying to find alternative ways, because like the food extrusion is obviously just like make fake fish.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can fit in one more.
Do we want to do one surprise me? We're going to get food sustainability if we do that.
Yeah, we probably will. Okay.
Right. Malnutrition.
Just off the bat.
Malnutrition refers to deficiencies, excesses, or imbalances in a person's diet. Approximately 460 million people are underweight and 1.9 billion adults are overweight or obese. All right, our first technical solution is quantum computing. Fantastic. The use of quantum mechanical phenomena to perform a computation. Time machines, devices that permit travel into the past and future. Okay.
Wait, and, this has a special symbol. It says wild card. The other one does it. So
I don't know what that means.
Must be like a super rare card or something.
Classification and recognition system, a technology system capable of identifying or verifying a person from a digital image or video frame. God damn. So, okay, one thing I want to comment on quantum computing is it's not just about using quantum phenomena for doing computing. The reason why that's interesting is that you can do computations at a previously untenable scale. The other thing that is becoming more interesting about quantum computing is not just doing general purpose calculations, which is what a lot of people think when they think computer. They think something that can run some arbitrary computation. But increasingly, the field is moving into like quantum sensing technology and using quantum computers or using the same kind of quantum phenomena that we use for computation to do sensing. And that's actually a much nearer term reality that I think was already being deployed in certain circumstances.
So are you including like medical imaging as part of like quantum computing?
No. The quantum sensors are more like using very specialized crystals to like measure certain kinds of quantum effects. For example, if you want to do like molecular detection and you want to get it right down to like the atomic level, right? There are certain kinds of sensors you can build that you can't build at the moment.
Okay, so we're focusing specifically on quantum computing then.
Yeah.
This one's hard.
We should get our editors to cut out all the dead time so that it looks like we're really fucking smart and we just like on the ball.
Okay, so let's see. Classification recognition system can just tell you that you're underweight or obese and just tell you that. I
think that's a really good point though, AJ. I mean, like I think a lot of people, because getting underweight or getting overweight usually starts from some sort of external dysmorphia, right? Whether it's literally about your body or whether it's just about your life in general. It's very behavioral. And one of the challenging things with these behaviors is that they have this impact on you over a long period of time, right? I think everyone who's ever been into fitness or tried going through some kind of weight loss journey, I think has gone through that experience of like, you go through the motions, you go through the processes, you go through the methods. And it's not until you look back at a photo from yourself 6 months ago that you're like, wow, things have really changed, right? Or when people start commenting on your body, people who you don't see regularly, right? They're like, oh, wow, you look really different from 6 months ago. And I think that having a piece of technology that is objective and that doesn't get biased over time because it's easier every day, it doesn't get used to you, can be very objective and be like, yes, you are making progress toward or away from the right, thing, right? You're becoming underweight, you need to do something about it. You're becoming overweight, you need to do something about it. Or you're on track, you're within the normal variance. Because sometimes, I'll get in front of the mirror one day and just be like, oh, no, this week I'm just going to like eat super tight because I feel bad about my body, right? And that's probably not true.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I was thinking, my mind was like drawn towards time machines, and I was sort of thinking, obviously, there's nothing telling you how exactly this works, but I was thinking, okay, you know how there's people that are bulimic and will sort of like eat something, regret it, throw it up, right, and they get in a cycle.
Wait, can I frame time travel? Because there is a version of time travel that is not yet definitively impossible. And it basically comes from the many world hypothesis, which is ironically the fundamental phenomenon that makes quantum computing work. But basically the idea is that when you travel back in time, you're not traveling back in time so much as you're visiting an alternate reality, like a parallel universe that is at a different, so you're shunting yourself into a different timeline, and it completely removes all time travel paradoxes. So you can go to that timeline in the past or in the future, and then come back to your own timeline to the present day, or slightly further into the future. You can't travel backwards in your own timeline, but you can travel backwards into other timelines.
Okay, I'm gonna assume that you're traveling backwards and just sort of like reversing your time. That's how I'm gonna take this time machine. So in this case, instead of throwing up, you just press a button and it restores your body to before you made that mistake. And so
that's a good one. I love that. That allows me to eat as much carbonara as I want.
Yeah. So if you have a really rough night, just reset your body and go back to before you did.
So like a really localized time machine.
Yeah,
I'll accept this, but only if you also locally travel, right? So like you end up where you were physically, 24 hours prior, and then I
was just thinking restoring the time of your cells. So it's just like your cellular structure just like reverts back. That's it. And everything else stays the same. It is just like a restoration system, essentially.
I kind of like this. I mean, This is actually, okay, let's ground this in reality a little bit more, right? There's a whole series of life science development that's focusing on cellular regeneration. And basically the idea is that it's very difficult to prove that you have slowed the aging of something, because you have to just sit around and wait. And if it didn't work, then that iteration time is fundamentally incompressible. However, what you can do is de-age. You take an old cell and make it younger again. And that you can do as fast as the process that you've invented allows you to do it. So this idea of like localized cellular level time travel, so to speak, we can't take time travel literally because it's in the form that you're describing is categorically impossible. And in all other forms, it's completely theoretical. But the idea of doing local reversal of aging of cells, not a terrible idea. How that might impact nutrition and being overweight or underweight, I don't know. Certainly, it's not immediately obvious, but it's...
I thought the obvious solution is like just go back in time to a time when you were healthier and then you're like problem solved. But I was trying to think a little bit more...
Well, I mean, out of the
box.
I would really want to see what the distribution of malnutrition is. Like, is malnutrition typically worse in people who are older? It's generally true. I think just observationally in my own life, anecdotally, that the older people get, the lazier they get, the more weight they put on, mentally they get lazier as well, and they just want the comforts of life. They eat worse. If you can keep yourself young, you take the longevity play, you just stay in your 30s forever. You are at your peak physical fitness, at least as a man. And maybe that reduces overweightness.
So the next one I'm thinking with quantum computing, it's kind of like what you're doing, right? Like with your company, but we could use quantum computing to identify specific ways to address those deficiencies and imbalances, because malnutrition isn't necessarily just like under eating or overeating. It's also you're low in vitamin A or vitamin D because like you're not eating the right kinds of things, right? And so I think obviously we have to figure out whether those problem sets fall within something that a quantum computer could do, but
they absolutely do.
Yeah,
they absolutely do.
Look at treatments. Yeah.
Quantum computing in drug discovery space is getting very exciting for a lot of people. It's not what we do, but the idea that you could create pills to offset malnutrition is a no-brainer. And the idea is that you could take pills to offset being overweight is increasingly also a no-brainer. The issue with people who are overweight, well, not the issue, but the American Association of Heart Health, I think, published a study a few years ago that showed that one of the major risk factors for population level health in people that are overweight is not actually that they're eating bad things. It's that those bad things are replacing healthy calories. So often people who are overweight are also malnourished. So they're getting too much food, but they're getting too much of the bad food. And actually, one of the biggest impacts you can make at the population level is just giving people good nutrients. So even if they're overweight, the impact of getting everyone back to normal weight is not as big on your health system as just getting them the right nutrients and letting them be overweight. Because that's actually what's killing people. And this is one of the largest and longest running studies. Yeah, I mean, if you could figure out pharmaceutical solutions to this, where you just pop some pills, get the nutrients that you need, people are pushing in this direction. Like supplements are obviously very popular. People talk about what stack they're on, but yeah, principally you could use quantum computing to do a better job of this. You could probably use classification and recognition systems as well to increase animal efficacy studies. You'd be surprised at how primitive the pharmaceutical studies are, where you just give drugs to animals and then you see papers published and they're like, yeah, this animal looks healthier. I don't know. So, I mean, maybe you could make that less subjective using classification.
Is that actually how they do it?
Absolutely. I saw this fascinating publication yesterday night that they found a way to make mice translucent, like straight up translucent. And the benefit of that is that when you give them drugs and dyes, you can physically see how it's distributing through the body. And you can just pick up the rat and you just look at it and you're like, oh, yep, there's my drug. Because it's just, I want to say that's how crude our measurement tools are, but that's a very sophisticated measurement tool. But it still comes down to just looking at the rat.
Okay, I want to know more about making a rat translucent. Well, we should talk about that.
Creepier still, they have temporary solvents that you can put on the rat, and it makes its skin translucent for a period of time, and then it goes back to being not translucent.
Does it work on humans?
That was my first question. I have no idea.
No answer?
No, I did not get an answer.
I'm surprised you guys haven't just bought some to
try it out. Yeah, just accidentally put a toxic solvent on myself so that I can see my stomach. Great idea.
No, not yourself. Just unwitting bystander. Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. So, what's the outro, Loon? Today's got your face on the thumbnail, I'm guessing.
Oh, okay. Well, how do I segue this? Okay, Google X created this game, and the idea is that it's to encourage people to think differently and to get outside the box and to create innovative solutions to the world's problems. And that's a very valuable enterprise. Google X has created many multi-billion, tens of billions of dollars worth of companies, if not hundreds of billions, and solved some really massive problems around the world. And that's got value. And that's exactly what we've done here today. We've given you guys a bunch of really obvious startup ideas, that you can just go and implement now without much further thinking. You don't have to develop much hard technology to do the things that we've discussed today. That's got a value, but we're giving it to you for free. And in exchange, what we'd like is for you to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and your family, and you'll look really smart. It's a win-win-win.